under autarky, the price of each, the relative price of cloth is going to simply reflect relative productivities, and because we assumed the absolute advantage of foreign, in this case France, was greater in the food sector than it is in the cloth sector, its autarky price was actually higher in cloth than it was in food. So when we started, before trade, France, foreign, had a higher relative price of cloth than the UK. Yeah? And now what we're asking here, so we're just focusing on the supply. So the why would anyone want to produce one good rather than the other? Now we ask, what would happen if, for whatever reason, the price after trade were lower than the average, than the relative productivity in the cloth sector for home? And because wages reflect, wages are going to reflect productivities, then in this case, the wage you would get in the C sector would actually be lower than the wage you would get in the food sector. Yeah, and as a result, no one will be willing to produce in that sector. If that is true for home, it must be definitely true for foreign, because the price of the relative price of the cloth for foreign is actually higher. So if the relative price of cloth is higher, the relative cost of production would also be higher. Yeah. And so what you get in here is that if the world relative price were, it's not going to happen, but if the world relative price were to fall below this AC over AF, there would be no world supply for cloth. Yeah. If the world relative price, which is the standard assumption, ends up by being between these two relative productivities, then there's going to be so-called complete specialization. In the logic, the complete specialization follows directly from people in both countries deciding where would I get the higher wage. Yeah? And home is going to specialize in cloth because they now, with trade, given the new world prices, PCT and PFT, they get more in the cloth sector. In foreign, France, is going to specialize in food production because after trade, how much each worker gets in the food sector is also higher than it is in the cloth sector. And so as you can see, once we assume there's a fixed technology out there and the populations or the labour forces do not change, then the world relative supply with complete specialisation is just a vertical line. Yeah? And that vertical line, you will see in the diagram, simply reflects the ratio of these two values here. Yeah? So, just for completeness, if the world price were below ACNAF, no one would be willing to produce cloth. If the world price is between the autarky relative prices, there's going to be complete specialization. If, for whatever reason, the world price were to be greater than the opportunity cost producing cloth for foreign, which was in this case France, then no one would want to produce produce food because each worker would get a greater range in the cloth sector. And of course, if we were to have world equilibrium price after trade that would just equal to either this AC or AF or AC asterisk over AF asterisk, then home and foreign, respectively, would in this case have workers being indifferent between working in the two sectors. Remember, all this comes from simply workers comparing how much do I get in one sector versus the other. Yeah? If you go back to the slides, the wages are going to the real wage is obviously equal to the marginal product of labour in the sector. The nominal wage is simply equal to the price you get for your product times your productivity. And what we're saying is that after trade, the price you get for your product, whether it's food or cloth, has changed. And the prices will change in such a way that it makes sense for workers and firms to switch to the sector that pays the most. Yeah? But if for whatever reason the price after trade were to remain equal to the price under autarky for the closed economy, then there would be no reason to specialise. Yeah? Before trade, home and foreign had to be producing both goods, which means the wage people were getting in the two sectors was identical. If that relative price doesn't change, the wages will also not change for that country, and so again, there would be no incentive to specialise. Is this very likely? The answer is no. Could this happen? Yes, especially if you have a very big economy trading with a small economy. Yeah? And so the big economy would actually not gain from trade because this relative price doesn't change. The foreign economy would. Yeah? So this is the diagram that reflects this relative supply. So as you can see, it's a supply curve because it's telling us how much, in this case, the two economies will be willing to produce at any given price of the goods, but it's a relative supply because it's all in terms of the quantity supplied of one good, QC, globally, relative to the quantity supplied of food. Yeah? And it's upward sloping, but it has this, it's in steps because of these, of the thresholds that I was talking about. So just to recap, if the world price is below this, no one wants to produce cloth because in both countries, workers would be better off getting higher wages in the food sector. Between this and that, there is home workers are indifferent between producing the two sectors, so the relative supply could be anything between here and that. If the world price were to, this is the more likely scenario, were to now fall between the two autarky prices, P and P asterisk, then there's going to be complete specialisation in the two countries, and home specialises in C, foreign France specialises in food. And if that world price were to be equal to P asterisk, again there would be this foreign would be a difference between producing these two, and that's why you have this horizontal bit. Yeah. Now, what about relative demand? Well, relative demand is going to be downward sloping. Doesn't have to be stepwise linear. It's just going to reflect basic substitution. People want to consume both goods, and so if the relative price of cloth were to fall, then people would move away from food into cloth, and that's what's going to be given by a simple downward slope of demand. So, where is the world relative price? It's going to be graphically. It's where the two curves intersect, and we're going to focus on the case where the two countries gain from trade, and that can only happen if the world relative price changes is going to be between the two autarky prices. Yeah? So the two countries are going to gain by specialising in one good. In the end, that means they will be producing one good, selling those the difference between what they consume domestically and what they produce to foreign And with that money from exports, they will be able to import the other good. And in this, in the Ricardian trade model, you have a trade balance. So the value of what you are exporting must be exactly identical to the value of what you're importing. Yeah. So in this basic setting, you have a trade balance. In more general settings, you don't need to have a trade balance. Yeah. So this is equilibrium price, and now what we need to show is, and we do this graphically, and we could also do it with algorithm, but the diagrams are fine, is that the relative price hasn't changed for both foreign and home. So for home, it has gone up. For foreign, it has gone down. Remember, the piastres is the foreign relative price of cloth. It will actually deliver higher consumption possibilities to the two countries. So here is what happens to home. So Britain, in this case, we assumed was having an absolute disadvantage in the production of the two goods, but it was relatively better producing cloth than it was producing food. So Britain has now, rather than consuming it and producing a day, yeah, it has now specialised. So production, PT, is taking place here, complete specialisation, and consumption is now taking place in here. And so as you can see, whereas before the autarky, A for autarky, there would be a utility indifference curve that would be tangent to this production possibility frontier. Now your indifference curve is higher, and this high indifference curve is the result of the gains from specialisation. What about France? What about foreign? Well, foreign has, of course, gone from consuming and producing the same amounts of C and F to fully specialising in the other goods, in food. And it's now producing at this point here, on its production possibility frontier, but because of trade, it's being allowed to consume, as you can see, more of both. This is a crucial message, and as I told you, we started off with this last week, it's meant to be a beautiful result, in part because so many people find this difficult to believe, even though, as I was trying to convince you last time, this comparative advantage idea is actually applied not just at the level of countries, but also at the level of jobs. Many of us are going to be specialising massively in what we do. It seems crazy that we're able to consume so many goods, but effectively it's because we trade the only few things we know how to do with all the other things we need. Yeah? But at the level of countries, many people find this quite difficult to understand. So just to recap what we get here, despite home being relatively unproductive, so they need more workers, and so and therefore it's more costly in terms of hours to produce each of the goods. It still makes sense to trade. In the end, both home consumers and foreign consumers end up by getting more of both. Yeah. So this is a powerful message that you get from this simple model. So